She dated Flash Thompson. She married Harry Osborn. Yada, yada, yada. She became a host for the symbiote fusion of Carnage and Anti-Venom. We're talking about Liz Allen, aka Misery. Hi, I'm Nando, and in this series, I take a character from Marvel Comics, I talk about their background, their power set, their personality, and I give you some reading recommendations. And this is all because this week, this character is being introduced into the collectible card game, Marvel Snap. Now this one's an interesting one because this month is all symbiotes, which means the character we're technically talking about here is Misery. However, this character's been in like 12, 13 issues of comics, so there's really not much to talk about. However, the host of the Misery symbiote is a much more consequential Spider-Man character, one you probably remember from at least one of the kind of recent movies, Liz Allen. See if this sounds familiar. Liz Allen was a classmate of Peter Parker at Midtown High and dated Flash Thompson. Peter was into Liz, but she wasn't really that interested in him. However, like Flash, she did have a crush on Spider-Man. Liz then met and dated Harry Osborn. Okay, so that's Mary Jane's arc from the first Spider-Man movie, right? Not sure exactly how intentional this is, but Liz Allen pretty much does what Mary Jane does in the first Spider-Man movie. Now, there's a bunch of other steps, including her stepbrother Mark Raxton turning into the Molten Man, but for the most part, she's a girl Peter Parker is into who is dating Flash Thompson, who doesn't really see Peter that way, and then she develops a crush on Spider-Man and ends up dating Harry Osborn. Now, the Harry and Liz relationship would stick around for a while. She met him at Betty Brant and Ned Leeds' wedding. They got married and they had a son named Normie Osborn. But things got complicated by the fact that Harry was still an Osborn and connected to Spider-Man via all the Green Goblin stuff, including eventually becoming and then dying as a new version of the Green Goblin. So here's where things get really interesting for Liz. She takes control of Oscorp now that Harry's dead. Norman comes back and does a takeover, but Liz eventually built her own company named Allen Chemical, which later merges with Horizon Labs and Oscorp to become Alchemax. That's right, the AL in Alchemax stands for Liz Allen. I had no idea. I just assumed it was like alchemy, like magic and turning elements into, but no, it's Allen Chemical. But unlike MJ in the Spider-Man movies, Liz Allen was not always a good guy. During the period between Civil War and Secret Wars 2015, Liz was all over the place. She helped Molten Man and the Exterminators capture Peter. She was mad at Peter for making his identity public during Civil War, because it put her family at risk. She was also allied with the villains in a conflict called Goblin Nation. She wanted to help build an empire that her son could inherit in the future, and she even eventually helped Norman Osborn escape. But more recently, Liz has become part of the symbiote side of Marvel. This all started when Norman Osborn returned, now connected to Carnage, and going by the alias Red Goblin. He infected Normie with the symbiote as both allied to take over Alchemax. In the middle of all this, Liz refused to seize control of the company, and Norman threw her out of a window, which led to a rift between Norman and Normie, and Spider-Man eventually beat the Red Goblin. So this all leads to the story where Liz Allen becomes the host of the symbiote Misery. Okay, so Alchemax is doing experiments with symbiotes, working with the Life Foundation. The Life Foundation, as we have discussed earlier, is evil. Carlton Drake, the CEO of the Life Foundation, gets one of the guardsmen named Corbin Jones to betray Alchemax so he can steal all of the symbiotes Alchemax is working with. Alchemax is trying to do the usual thing of using symbiotes to cure diseases and heal people and stuff like that. And Corbin Jones manages to steal all of the symbiotes, except one that Liz Allen had on her, which was a test that we're going to do where they were going to mix the Carnage symbiote and the Anti-Venom symbiote, which we'll get to eventually. The Anti-Venom symbiote is basically like the symbiote that beats other symbiotes, but they were going to try to turn them into one thing. And after being attacked by Jones, Liz realized the only way she could fight back is by using the Misery symbiote and becoming Misery. Misery has the usual symbiote powers, although she is more invulnerable, I would say, than your usual symbiote. She can be ripped in half and it doesn't even matter. But she again has to go up against Corbin and the Life Foundation because Carlton Drake took all the symbiotes that he stole, put them into one suit, and then gave that suit to Corbin Jones, who becomes Madness. The Life Foundation also reanimates a bunch of dead people using symbiotes and turns them into soldiers. Liz Allen and Misery have a therapy session where she realizes that she was abused by her former husband, Harry Osborn. Even if Harry Osborn had all kinds of weird goblin stuff going on, that didn't mean she was not also a victim of that. And when she is able to have that realization, Liz becomes Misery again, is able to work with Spider-Man to stop mayhem and to put an end to Carlton Drake's schemes. I believe Misery is part of the new Venom War event, but I do think that those 5 issues in Cult of Carnage Misery are the Misery books. So I would say, because I haven't done this yet in this video, for reading recommendations, I would say the first book you should read if you want to get a sense for who Liz Allen is, or was, I guess. I would say read Amazing Spider-Man 28. This is an issue about Molten Man, who is Liz Allen's stepbrother, but this book also does a good job of explaining what the dynamic is between Liz and Peter at this time when they're both in high school. It's written by Stan Lee with art by Steve Ditko and Sam Rosen. And then the other two books I would say are important issues for Liz Allen are both in the Cult of Carnage Misery storyline, because those books do a lot of work to recap all the important parts of Liz Allen's life. Especially because, like, you could go to specific issues about how she created Alchemax, or go to issues about her conflicts with Harry, but I think this is a great summary. And I will say, issue 1, very good for this, and then issue 4. But just like read it, because it's 5 issues. It's a very easy read, and it's a fun looking book. I do think, as far as the symbiotes, I've never been the biggest fan of all their, big jagged teeth and stuff. But well, that's all I got. I don't know. I just feel like their designs, a lot of the symbiotes just look pretty similar to me. But we'll get to ones that I like more, because I do think there are some cooler ones. But both those books are written by Sabir Perzada, with art by Francisco Mortarino, Hava Tartaglia, and Josepino. Now, I've used the name Liz Allen. Some of you are probably like, I don't know any of these comics, and I'm not familiar with these storylines, but that name does ring a bell. It should, because that is the name of Peter Parker's love interest in the first new MCU Spider-Man movie. So in SpiderMan Homecoming, Liz Allen is the girl of Peter Parker's dreams before it's clear. I mean, it's clear to us, if you know what's going on with Spider-Man, you recognize that Zendaya is supposed to be a version of MJ. But in this book, Liz Allen is just a popular girl who is smart and cool and interested in Peter, which is something that is true. Like, she had a crush on Peter back in the day. She's a relationship with a villain. In this case, her dad is a Vulture. It's not like her husband and stepfather being Green Goblin, or her stepbrother being Multiple Man, but it is a connection to a villain that complicates her relationship with Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I mean, we've never seen her again. We did see a character that's kind of Molten Man, but I mean, that's not really actually Molten Man, because it was just a big Mysterio ruse. So I guess there's space for that character to show up in the future. There are rumors that after Venom 3, future Spider-Man movies are going to be really into symbiote stuff. I think it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to bring Liz Allen back. I just think creating Alchemax, which is another thing people probably recognize from other Spider media, specifically into the Spider-Verse, big part of that, I don't think she could have done that yet, because she's like, I don't know, in her mid-20s. Maybe she could. I don't know. I mean, her dad went to jail, though, right? So it's not even like her life is tough. I imagine we're never going to see her again. But if she does come from another dimension and she's Misery, I don't know, that could be kind of cool. And she was played by an actor named Laura Harrier. As far as close friends and connections, it's all Spider-Man characters. Spider-Man, Carnage, because Carnage and the Misery symbiote are connected. Same with the Anti-Venom, who we will get to. There was a while in the Donny Cates run where she was working with Venom, and like I said, she got connected to all the Goblin stuff via Harry. In Marvel Snap, Misery is a 4-cost 7 power with the on-reveal ability. Repeat the on-reveal abilities of your other cards here, then destroy them. So this is an interesting one, because it has some symbiote qualities, right? It's supposed to be, and like I said in the comics, it's a fusion of the Carnage strain of symbiote mixed with the Anti-Venom strain of symbiote. Which I can see the Carnage, because Carnage destroys cards to gain power, and in this, she destroys cards to reactivate power. And it makes sense, because what Liz Allen and Alchemax are trying to do is use the symbiotes to treat medical conditions. So Misery, the card, kind of brings your card back to life, and also Misery, specifically that symbiote, is like incredibly durable. Like we said, you can rip her apart, you can split her up into a million pieces, and then just reform like liquid metal Terminator. So the idea that the Misery symbiote can bring back an already used card makes sense. The use cases for her are pretty obvious. There's 2 big ones. The first one, she functions as an interesting Electro, like counter, almost creating like a Wiccan type card, because Wiccan is also a 4/7. And with Wiccan, you have to play a bunch of specific cards before that. But if you just play Electro on 3 and then Misery on that same space on 4, then you're going to have 2 extra power and no limits on that, because Misery is going to destroy Electro and negate that ongoing effect. So there's that. Powers you up. That's helpful. And she's the same. I believe Wiccan is also a 4/7 power. So it's like you're getting the exact same thing on the board. I guess you're losing anything you would have gotten turn 3 with speed, but it's more consistent. And then the other thing is there's certain cards that are activated and then used up pretty much, right? Like there's cards like Gladiator where you activate them, but then having a power on the field is nice, and cards like Ironheart where you activate them once and then there's a 0 power card that's just sitting there. Misery can A, clear space on the board, which is always great. B, get rid of those cards that power up other cards like Ironheart or Silver Surfer or White Tiger or something like that. So yeah, I think this card has a lot of use cases. It feels a lot like Grandmaster, any card that lets you replay on reveal, but like Grandmaster is seeing some play now, especially because of the move archetype being popular. I also think playing her on 6 on a lane with all these cards that we've already discussed, like a Silver Surfer, a Ironheart, and a White Tiger, like you could get all 3 of those used. That's pretty good. As far as variants, again, pretty good. I do think that, so the Ryan Kennard and the Eduardo Mello variant that is the base art for this card does a really more pronounced job, I think, than, at least in the books that I've read, of separating the reddish hair of Misery from the symbiote skin that is Misery. Because symbiote, it's like a red and white skin. It's weird because in most of the comics, it's just one color. It's almost like the hair is part of the skin. And I think part of why that's important is because if you saw this character from a distance, you'd be like, oh, I guess that's Mary Jane because she's a redhead in Spider-Man comics. Like, what character has that hair color? And it's not Liz Allen. Like, Liz Allen is traditionally blonde, so I'm not sure what they're going for there. There's also the Panda Art Studio Spotlight Cash, fine. And then a very cool looking In-Hyuk Lee variant that I'm not sure where this art comes from, but I'm going to guess it's probably from Venom War. And this has her blonde hair. So right off the bat, good variants. And then she comes out with War Machine, a card that has been very useful recently. And Namora, a card that you see played every so often, and you're like, that card's okay. So interesting. If you enjoyed this, like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I try to put these up early, although I've been super busy this week with Agatha and then the bazillions of other casting newses and things like that. So I'm going to get that done quicker, especially because next week we're talking about Scorn, a character that has a very short lifespan. An interesting story. And like, compared to a lot of these other symbiotes that are just all kind of the same thing, this is a very specifically different symbiote, but it's not a symbiote where like I have to read a million books to understand them. It's all pretty concise. So thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.